We spoke actually earlier with Sarah, the writer, who said that once the team had come up with that title, it just seemed to slot into place. I think if you were to go down any avenue of calling it the Mitford Girls, the Mitford Sisters, you're sort of conjuring up an image of tweed and sweet, and it's not that. They are outrageous, they are scandalous, they are driven, they are passionate, they are intelligent, they are fierce. And I think the word outrageous, I mean, it caught my attention when I read it. I thought, oh, okay, here's a twist on a story, yes, from the 1930s, but deeply modern women. Women who don't want to do what they're told, don't just see their value in whether they marry, whether they find a man and have a child. So I feel outrageous really does conjure up all of those things quite eloquently in that one word.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that for the time especially, for the time they were outrageous, that there was a sense that, we'd been evolving as a species for 200,000 years up until that point. And we had suddenly these women after the First World War, after the ghastliness, the hell of the First World War, they came out of that, and then for the first time they had a vote. They had a stake, they had agency in society. They could now be lawyers and doctors and academics and writers and the rest of it. And suddenly women were now not the chattel, the owned class. And I think a lot of people think all this happened in the 60s, but actually it didn't really happen in the 60s. It happened in the 20s and the 30s. And that's when women suddenly became something else that they hadn't been up to that point.
And you've got the Bright Young Things, which is a world that when we're in London in the show, not in the countryside, but in London, we dip into the Bright Young Things scene, that bohemian, very sort of open, louche sort of world, which is reflected in, we've got an amazing location, the Black Cat Club, and some amazing costumes that really delve into that world, which is very alluring, I think.
And they were just extraordinary. The six women were, and the boys. Well, don't forget Tom.
We do have a
Tom
little brother, Tom,
but he dies. Well, we do. That's spoiler alert.
Series 2. Don't worry about it.
Next war. But we have these six girls who weren't. I was saying earlier, and it's a good allusion that. They didn't just walk out of the stables, they bolted and became something extraordinary, and they all came from one family, and they were all brought up in the countryside. They didn't go to school. He refused to send them, I play the dad, he refused to send them to school because he didn't understand why a girl would need to go to school. You go, you learn sewing, and you learn cooking, you learn housekeeping, you read the odd books so that you can actually have a conversation over dinner. But otherwise, you're just going to get married into this class, and then you're going to have children of your own, and then they'll have children, and then you'll bloody well die. And that's your life. So he doesn't really understand how this has happened. Well, it's happened because he is like how he is and how his wife, Mav, is. And those children come from them, but that's not something they really understand.
Mav was super alternative. I mean, she was into alternative medicine. She didn't let them go to the doctors if they were unwell. She was like, no, the body will right itself.
Yeah, she would have definitely been an anti-vaxxer. She was an anti-vaxxer.
Yeah.
She didn't believe in any of that science.
Yeah.
Like it was something like a god that you would believe or not in. Yeah. She didn't really believe in facts.
Forced to make your own opinion.
So they're extraordinary. This costume design, a lot of times when you do costume dramas, you're given costumes by costume designers. And quite often they all look a bit the same, actually. You go, this has all come from the same costume house. These characters wear clothes. They don't wear costumes. And clothes are worn just by regular people and real people. Actors wear costumes. Real people wear clothes, and these people wear clothes.
There are details like in the country house where we all grow up. Nancy has 2 or 3 cardies or jumpers in the cupboard, which she just leaves at home at mum and dad's, and they've got moth-eaten holes in the elbows, and it's so real, the clothes. And every character is so beautifully defined by their interests, because they're all so different, the girls. And so, you've got the youngest who stays at home, who loves horse riding, and she's in her jumpers all the time in a sweater. And then you've got Diana, who is, high society London, who probably gets her clothes designed, dripping in diamonds, given to her by her wealthy husband, Brian Guinness, Nancy in the Bohemian. So everyone is so uniquely defined, which was amazing coming from the brains of Claire Collins, our designer. So it doesn't feel like a traditional stuffy period drama. It feels like a really authentic story.
Yeah. I mean, I did my clothes. I had 3 suits. That was it. I had one for Sunday best. I had one for town, which is that's exactly what he would have had. And he wears the same clothes. The only thing he changes is the colour of his tie. That's the only thing he ever changes.
I thought about that the other day. I was thinking, Nancy, what a great decision was, okay, that's her London coat.
Yeah.
And we repeat things, whereas I think we have an obsession with, you have to have a new costume in absolutely every single scene. That's not real. I have my winter coat, I've got my fave autumns, I've got my bag. You've got your favourites, so that's real. It doesn't mean that it's not as grand.
Quite.
It's actually very real.
Having said that, there was a day when we were shooting the Easter Day parade, the walk to church.
Yeah.
And I was looking at you all and I was going, oh God, this is so going to start a trend.
It was like,
it's so obviously
is it Goodfellas
a trend.
when they're all walking?
Yes, but
like,
just the clothes, and the women, the girls looked so fucking cool. They just all look really cool. And I went, oh my God, no, that's what this is going to take off.
And things like Pam, who's one of the sisters, always wears trousers. They were not afraid to be different. They really weren't. They owned themselves, which is really cool to see. I suppose it throws up the question of family. Can you remain a family unit with such varying political views? But I suppose what I would want the audience to take away is to engage in conversation with people who have differing views from your own, to try to hear them, understand them, see their humanity, and try to understand why they are thinking and believing and feeling the way that they are. I would come towards rather than go away, which I think we're doing at the moment.
Yeah, I think that for me, I was thinking that because we had a lot of there's some very far right riots in England while we were making this, and it's interesting when you're working on something where people are talking about fascism or dealing with fascists or flirting with that as an idea, and it really struck me while we were doing it. I was thinking, God, these people, although they were kind of the Diana and the Oswald Mosleys, although they're monstrous, they had no idea in the 30s what the logical conclusion of fascism was. They had no idea that we were going to end up, although it was ghastly what they were doing, they didn't actually know the industrialized process that was going to happen because of fascism. Our fascists these days, we have the benefit of hindsight. We know where it ends up. And that I find particularly frightening.